Hello, hello.
Hello.
I'm super excited for this. How are we doing?
Very good.
Yeah.
You?
Yes, great.
Very good.
It's great to be in Helsinki when the sun is shining. Well, I live here, but I think everyone else has a different experience with slush, so I'm enjoying it. I would like to start with a round of intros, so you can introduce yourselves and the funds a bit more than was just done here, and then let's jump into the questions. So maybe Stine, you can go first.
Definitely. Well, thank you for inviting me. So my name is Stine Sørensen. I'm a partner at Alliance VC. Alliance VC is a generalist fund, so we don't only do climate tech, but we very much focus on it. So we have allocated a big chunk of our funds in order to invest in climate tech. Personally, I sit on a couple of boards of climate tech companies out of Denmark. I've done some personal investments in those, and I do see that climate tech is a very big thing in Denmark, at least where I come from, and general thing in Scandinavia. So I think this is a very excellent topic to discuss, at least.
Yeah, and I'm excited to hear more about the ecosystem in a bit. How about Ewelina?
Yeah, so my name is Ewelina. I'm a principal at Icos, and Icos is a Dutch-based VC. The headquarters in Amsterdam, and what we're really doing, we're searching for deep tech startups, solution for industry, and mainly there are two sectors we're interested in: the chemical and food industry, decarbonization, agriculture. And what I really like about Icos is that we not only support financially, but we're also trying to make the connection with corporates. So in this way, it's a little bit easier to accelerate sustainability.
Yeah. Great. And hi, everyone, on my behalf as well. So I'm Petra. I'm from Greencode Ventures, so recently funded Impact VC here in Helsinki. So we invest across Europe in anything digital in the green transition. So let's get going. Let's frame kind of the climate tech space, or climate tech in action, as was one of the subtopics. So why do you invest in climate tech, and why is it an interesting area? Maybe we can kind of start with that.
Yeah, of course, like for us, the main reason, everyone, I assume, can see the climate is changing. So if we are let's invest in somewhere that matters, and the climate matters for us. And a part of it, maybe I didn't mention, but the great majority of our team, it's coming from university, and some have a technical background. So we enjoy talk to the startups. We enjoy to learn more about the tech. And again, if you can apply these technologies and use it for some goods, we would like to do it.
Yeah,
I definitely agree on. I mean, we all want to spend time on solving problems. They're very much worthwhile, right? And I do think that the climate part is applicable to that in the matter of that there are a lot of challenges there that needs to be tackled, and some ways to actually contribute to that is obviously allocating funds towards those who are solving those problems. We've also seen that if you look at the data, in 2017 there was not actually that many funds allocated towards investing in climate technology, and we have seen a massive change just very recently, and that obviously also gives other problems in terms of it's a crowded space and it's expensive to invest in those, but that's actually a good problem, because that means that there are willingness to invest, and that we are actually mature this area so that we can see we solve actual problems that somebody wants to pay for, and that I really think is the crucial thing here when you want to invest and when you spend more time on this. So I mean, at Alliance we are not an Article 9 fund, we are an Article 8 fund, so we are a little bit more broad, but we do see a lot of things here, and I definitely think that those into the working with technology into the transition of deploying into the electricity grid, those of working with decarbonization, and those things are very interesting topics, at least for us, I would say.
Yeah. How about then, can you describe the fund's approach to investing in climate tech? So maybe some of the hurdles, as we all know, there's the financing hurdle with maybe the deep tech, more capex heavy stuff. Then maybe on your side also, how do you balance the portfolio then with the climate and non-climate? Kind of how do you do that? But maybe Ewelina, you can start with.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, we actually now have the fourth fund. We just launched in January, and the previous one was Article 8. Now we enter this impact fund, Article 9. So our investment, if you enter our website, you can see that we have this kind of the goal to reduce 1 gigaton of CO2 by 2050. And how we do it, we invest in companies that can avoid CO2 emission, reduce the footprint, or capture CO2. So when you look really on our portfolio, there are like 3 types of the companies. One, they can like really do the huge impact, reducing the tons of CO2. The other, like that they can avoid at least, so everything that's related to the manufacturing. And the third category for us is they are the SaaS solution, that they can somehow also help the industry to calculate how to reduce the energy amount, CO2 footprint, greenhouse emission, everything like that.
Yeah, maybe some example companies you'd like to highlight from maybe all those 3, or kind of something that you're excited about.
Yeah, in decarbonization, we have one company called Carbon Clean. It's already Series C, Series D company. And what they are doing, they are like putting the installation where there are big emitters, petrochemicals, and they are capture CO2 coming from the manufacturer. And there's like tons of the CO2 reduction. It's a good example. The other one that we have more on the manufacturing side is called Holyferm. They are from UK. And what they are doing, they are replacing those, they are called surfactants. You have it in your soap, you have it in your like liquids when you are washing something. They are doing bio-based alternatives to it. So it's the next good example. And we have a lot of other investments in the food when we try to search for more plant-based proteins. So they are those verticals where we are like really see the CO2 impact.
Yeah. And maybe still on your side, so what are then the hurdles that you see in this climate tech space, maybe with the portfolio companies or investing in these companies that you need to scrutinize in the analysis?
So from investor point of view, regarding our portfolio, if you have this 1 gigaton ambition, that is not so easy to find those companies that are ready today, now, to go to the stage, apply to the market the solution. They are still doing the scaling, but that's fine. We are a deep tech investor. But what we would like to see, we would like to see more scalable solution that they are offer like not only green premium. What we also would like to see on the market side, that they would like willing to pay this green premium price. And for the startups, like I think their challenges, they are common challenge for startups. So how to scale, how to do it profitable, how to find the collaboration on the market side, on the customer side. So I would say, yeah, big, long journey.
Yeah, yeah. How about Stine? Kind of maybe the fund's approach and the hurdles?
In terms of the hurdles and the challenges that we see, there is obviously related to what I said before, is now we see a lot of money being funneled into this. This is great for the ecosystem, but that also drives the competitiveness there are among some of these deals. So some of those companies that have actually shown the revenue and they can build the partnerships and they can build the technology, they're obviously a huge competition around those companies, and you need to get in there very early, at least for a seed stage fund like Alliance, because if it's too late, there was no chance that we will be able to deploy or get anything out of the capital we will be deploying, right? So in that sense, you really have to believe in them in an early stage, because they are tapping into a huge market, so it can very quickly take off, and that's great, because I'm a huge supporter of all of the founders and the technology that is happening here. I do also think that there are some areas where you see more climate tech companies than others, where at least I think in Denmark, where it's heavily subsidized by the Danish government, because we have companies like Vestas and Ørsted and those kind of big climate companies that goes many years back. We sort of have an ecosystem there, and so I think there's a lot of things coming out of those old ecosystems as well, and that is subsidized by the government, because the government puts money into a couple of things, but what they primarily put money into is health tech and climate tech. And so those two areas are growing fast in that sense. So it's also interesting to follow these companies. But they get expensive very fast.
Yeah, maybe a question there. So is it more than on the infrastructure, or kind of building new types of I don't know, or scaling and that side that the subsidies are going in?
It's a little bit of everything, I would say, but the technology side, so what I have seen is companies within, at least in Denmark, within procurement, so not so necessarily betting on one source of energy, if it would be solar, it will be wind, or it will be water. It's more of procurement of how do you facilitate and how do you finance building new plants or infrastructure in that sense, or if it's about decarbonization, so it's more also facilitating building more decarbonization projects, so that it's also again the procurement part of that. You find those who would like to secure that the electricity they're using in the future is green, and make sure that they can also be more neutral in what they're already emitting, right? So I see some of those more general things that can also scale internationally.
Yeah. I'm going a bit off script here, but still on this funds approach to investing in the space. So what would you like to see? Obviously, you were saying that there's also multiple these different kind of verticals that you're looking into. But is there something concrete that you would like to see in the companies that you invest in? Or some, well, traction is maybe difficult if it's a SaaS versus something quite CapEx heavy. But what are the few things that you'd really like to see?
We would like to see, I would say, retrofit to the current infrastructure, especially when we're talking about industrial sector. So we have a lot of investment in the manufacturing, in the food, in chemicals. It's very difficult for corporates to come and change their facility day per day. And startups coming with new ideas, new technologies, that the market is not ready yet. So this is something that we would like to really see, like a little bit movement of the industrial side, but a little bit of movement of the startups, and like thinking a little bit upfront how they can really fit now to the market. It will be very useful. As you mentioned, client traction, we will help you to build it. We will help as much as we can. Financial-wise, we will help. On the scaling, we have those, as I mentioned, partners that they are helping the startups to scale.
Yeah. How about you, Stine?
Well, I mean, I don't think that climate tech companies is so different from all other kinds of companies. Especially when you're investing at a seed stage, what you really would like to see is it's so early that they have had very little impact, but there's a lot of actions. And I always advocate for that. When I screen a company, I want to see the actions they have taken towards getting the impact. Because if I was a Series A fund, I would have been able to measure the actual impact they have already had, because they would be a more mature company. So for me, it's very much about seeing the actions they have taken towards trying to succeed with their mission, right? So really, and I think that's applicable for all seed stage companies, is that what have you done in order to solve the problem you're there for, right? And there you see, like, what people have you spoken to, what kind of partnerships have you tried to make, how mature is the technology, and what can it actually do now? Do you have any customers or potential customers that has given feedback on what you're trying to do? And I think that applies to everybody. And then, of course, what you really see in the energy sector, at least from what I have looked at, or climate tech in general, is obviously that you tap into a very huge market. And that is the essence of venture capital, right? You want to see a big TAM, and that obviously also exists in that space. And if they have identified those things, it's at least a good way to have a first meeting, I would say.
Yeah, yeah. And then another question of the script, since I think this is so interesting. So, what are then some of the things that you would like to see on the founder team? So is it kind of the scientific knowledge? Is it the industry knowledge? What are some of the key determinants for you to invest in a team in the space?
Well, I mean, I do think I like teams that have diversified their skills, right? So it's great if they don't look like each other, and they don't come from the same universities, and they have not been friends for 15 years. Some of them can be, but I just would like to see different kinds of profiles. So the essence of diversity of age, ethnicity, universities, all of those things is, the more they can complement each other with different skills, the better, I believe, and stronger it is. So someone that has a strong scientific background, some that has a more executional background, like a consultant for a big management company or something like that. Those kind of combinations. It doesn't have to be like that, but combinations of different kinds of skills is really what I think is strong.
Yeah. And anything to add?
Yeah, I would totally agree. But what we see, and because our fund was established 18 years ago, and when we start with the seed, very early stage, and at this level, you are talking to very technical team. But they are growing with you. I mean, with the fund. So basically, we saw also the small shifting and change over the management team. Like CEO, CTO, with sometimes taking the same role. It's making the space for the new individuals that they are helping them to grow. And I think it's also the role of the good investor to help them, to explain them how to really build the good management team.
Yeah.
Definitely, they need to be the ones that has the technical or the subject matter expertise, because I, as an investor, don't have that, and I would be worried if I had that. so yes, it is obviously also to grow with the team, especially if they are first-time founders. Then you are also more present in the company in some way. If they are second or third-time founders, I don't think they need that as much support. They just need your money and you to cheer for them in some way.
Yeah. How about then moving into the country or the ecosystem level? So what differences? Maybe you have the Nordic context quite well covered, and especially Denmark. So what are some? You were saying kind of the subsidies and all that, but what do you see? What's interesting in climate tech in Denmark, or maybe your view on the Nordics overall?
I mean, so as I said, we see quite a few interesting things. We have sort of one of the recent unicorns within climate tech. It's called Monta, which does IT infrastructure to EV charging stations, and they scaled within 2.5 years and grew really fast. I think they raised more than 130 million euros or something like that by now, and that is really great for the ecosystem, because we need some of those big companies that starts the ecosystem in some way, right? They're also serial entrepreneurs. They come out of different companies that they have established and those things, and they get a lot of subsidiary from the government as well, because they're really trying to do much more internationally. We see those. We also see those, as I said, within procurement, trying to facilitate the financing of plants or carbon emission projects as well. So I do think we see those, but they all have a technological perspective. And as of now, and now I should be careful, but I haven't seen so many that does things within hardware. And there was a discussion before around, can you actually do something here without the hardware? But I do think that providing sort of more of the infrastructure and those things that facilitates that these things are actually happening, I think that is at least what I see coming out of Denmark.
Yeah, and maybe as context here, so we are an impact fund and climate tech fund that only invests in software or maybe some software-enabled hardware, but still we think, because this is always the debate and the question, so we think that there's a lot we can do with software to get to our targets, and we do appreciate a lot the hardware kind of solutions.
We also need that, right?
Yeah, exactly. But that's maybe a bit more long term. So we need both to be able to reach the targets and actually make this better.
The hardware part is more capex heavy in the sense that you need more capital to succeed with those. But that doesn't mean it shouldn't be there, right? And it just means that it's maybe different areas they would seek towards, right? So, but I do think there's a lot of interesting things happening, and that's great, because we also need those technologies, right? And I think we're even at a stage where we're almost desperate to see what can we do and what can fast track some of these solutions, right?
Yeah, and then I think it's always the question, kind of like what funding is best for the climate tech companies, or should you have a 15-year fund, a VC fund, or should it be evergreen, or what are kind of so I think we're still kind of, not the topic of this conversation, but still kind of finding the climate tech funding stack. Overall, how about you? Any perspectives on the ecosystem?
So we invest in Europe in general, Israel, and now also in North America. So we have a little bit broader perspective about it. How I would divide it, we see different maturity regarding the climate tech. In the west of Europe, I would say UK, Netherlands, France. There's a lot of happening in climate tech, especially regarding the hardware. On the east side, it's still growing, so it's a lot of learning to be done for us, because we are Series AB investor. So it's still a little bit too early for us, but we see some initiative there in the climate. And recently, we're very interesting about the Scandinavia market, and what we really like about you guys, that you are searching for the local supplies, local renewable resources, and you are planning to apply them somehow and making, more circular economy around. And this is what we see, at least in Scandinavia.
Yeah. I agree. It's a good ecosystem.
Maybe you're from like European perspective. So is it so that you see kind of the Nordics overall as the driving force? Because I then feel like Iberia, Spain, there's a lot going on there as well. So what are kind of the key markets that you're tapping into?
Yeah, as I say, we have like very specific needs. I would say per each location, we are searching for the specific needs. In Nordic, we are like really interested in the biomaterials coming from wood, like cellulose, valorization, etc. In Spain, what we are searching, they are struggling a little bit with water. We are also searching a lot about the water technologies there. So I would say, there are different type of the topics, different sectors. There are some sectors that we are really interested with, is the biotech platform that can be applied for industrial manufacturing, and could be like around Europe, everywhere. So it's like difficult to generalize, but this is what we see.
Yeah. Then to the specific innovations. So what industries, specific industries, do you find the most exciting right now? And then maybe what is something that you kind of seen a lot of things happen, but you haven't made a bet yet, or you think is maybe a bit too busy?
I mean, I do think there's a lot of. I do think that all areas should get recognition, because we need all of it, right? I would though say that personally, and that maybe comes from the experience that I have myself, is obviously those that tries to solve larger scale problems at once, because we also need those solutions, right? So there's also a timing here where I think that if you can, because some of the regulations and some of the electricity grids and those things are very local, right? So we also need to, at least that's what I'm looking for, some of those that can actually solve problems at a larger scale to begin with, right? And that goes for, I guess, all investors like to see those. So that's not anything I have invented. But I also think, I mean, at Alliance we only look in the Nordics, so we're very focused on the Nordics. But I also think that there is a lot to be done here still, because I mean. But you still want these Nordic companies to go outside of the Nordics. You want them to go to Germany or to the UK or to Spain, for that matter, because they are massive markets with massive challenges, right? So I still think there is a huge role to play in the rest of Europe. But I also think that what we do here specifically within, at least what I have seen in decarbonization, at least, and also the procurement side, I do think that those areas are very interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, for us, if you ask about like solution that we would like to invest today, again, the solution that they can capture a lot of CO2, as now. And for example, for the constructions and building, when you can like apply CO2 and storage into the concrete, So this type of the solution. I mentioned biotechnology platform, fermentation solution that you can replace chemicals coming from fossil fuel. For the food, because also the food system is emitting a lot of greenhouse emission, etc., and agriculture, plant-based alternatives can we apply instead of animal-based ones? So, it's so many interesting topics around. It's difficult to pick only one.
Yeah,
I do think one area that at least I've seen that is crowded, and that needs a little bit more time to see how they differentiate is within carbon accounting. And I can understand why there's a lot of companies coming out of it, because it's heavily data oriented, and there is a lot to be done, and we see within the EU there's a lot of legislation coming in that area, so that also drives businesses. But as an investor, I always have to spend a little bit more time on thinking of how does these carbon accounting companies differentiate, and I find that a little hard, and I sometimes can maybe just be a little generalizing there and say that is that just another carbon accounting company. So I do think that area is a little crowded to some extent, but not that there's anything wrong with it, and I don't want to discourage anybody to do this, but at least if I look at my inbox, that's at least a lot of those companies I see.
I have to agree. We saw a lot there, and we still have like difficulties to pick the forerunners,
Yeah, because who will win this, and how do they differentiate, right?
Yeah, and I feel like in the coming years there's also a lot of maybe stricter, because the regulation is kind of rolling out. So we need to get better data all the time. So I think that's also now kind of maybe we haven't, because it's very nascent as a market, so we haven't maybe picked the winner yet. But let's see in 2 or 3 years how the regulation, like what it actually drives.
And normally when you see sort of these fragmented kind of solutions, you will see consolidation, right? So you will probably see not one company that wins it all, but you see a few companies consolidate, and then they can take more of the market, so to say. So that's at least what I'm expecting will happen in the near future, is we see consolidation within, at least in carbon accounting, I would say.
Yeah, and then I think another point there is the supply chain mapping. So there's also a lot of like the scope 3.
The supply chain is EU regulations, right? If they make more regulations, there will be more for them to do.
Okay, so you were also saying a bit of the companies that you'd like to see, but is there anything kind of like, what are you in the lookout for, so someone in the audience can start building something for you?
Well, I mean, it's hard to say because it is a combination of many things, right? Because it's hard to say that you go for one specific thing, because it's also a matter of how they have tackled that specific thing, who the people on the team are, and then where they're going. So I'm not I'm a little reluctant to say something specific.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, we're not so thematic as you are at Alliance, so I'm actually here to have an open mind to look at most things. That's what we try to do, so we can pick the winners regardless of what they're doing, so to say. So for us, it's also about being very open about these solutions, at least. So I will leave it to you to pick one thing you're looking for.
Yes. So you were alluding to this already, but is there something specific that you'd like to see?
Oh my God. Yeah, again, difficult question. Yeah. So, as I mentioned, I'm probably repeating, we would like to see the solution for what the market is asking. And how we know what the market is asking? Because we have this industrial partner. And we really believe when we are very close and you have the knowledge what is needed, and there is like there's the pool, so then you can solve some problems, the real problems. So I would say any type of the solution for climate, very close related to the market, because there are plenty of the regulation are coming in, and those corporates, they have to face the fact that they have to one day pay more taxes because of, I don't know, emission or like because of the plastic. And I will expect more innovation there.
Yeah. Then kind of coming back or maybe taking a bit of a higher approach, so impact. So how do you measure it? I think it was interesting you were talking about the 1 gigaton. So what does it mean concretely? How can you measure it with all these companies doing very different things? What's your take on impact?
So how we measure the impact? We are measured like when we are preparing those sustainability reports, as I think for the fund, as impact fund is necessary. We are showing how much euro we invest per CO2 capture. Is how we are showing, and how we do it in practice. Before we start talking to the company or like during the due diligence phase, we basically have the matrix that they have to follow. Trying to understand how we can together calculate the amount of the CO2 which they can or capture, reduce, avoid, anything. So it's one point, and then there are other like metrics as ESG, SDG that we are following. We are measuring it, and basically how it works. Although difficult task, because as you say, European Union is changing all of the time requirements regarding the regulation.
And maybe if I can kind of continue on that, so obviously there are things like biodiversity, where the CO2 reduction is maybe not kind of the most apparent. So how do you tackle that? Do you use some proxies, or like how do you?
Yes, we're having the matrix. We follow them. We follow the social impact. Economical impact, we're trying to understand, like, even on the gender, we're trying to understand if the team is balanced, how they can, like, how much I would say that they can influence on the local, I mean, like, if it's the local influence, or it could be the worldwide influence, you know, all of this type of the matrix that we can follow, we follow.
Yeah, and then it always kind of comes down to the CO2. Reduction with all these companies.
For us is the main point. For us is the main point, but yeah.
How about you?
I mean, as I said, I think you give the best answer, because you're a thematic fund really focused on this. I mean, again, at Alliance, we're only an Article 8 fund, so that obviously means that we give much more generic reporting on how it performs and how it goes with those things. But I mean, I actually in some way don't mind the kind of reporting, because that also gives us an overview of how well it's performing and what we're doing. And personally, I like to see that every invested euro has an influence on that kind of climate impact, so to say. I would say that because it's very early we invest, as I said, it's almost too early to even have had an impact at this stage, at least when we start investing. So it's also a little bit of how you say, we need to see what is the potential, right? And that you don't have to report on to begin with. But I definitely think it's a combination of those two things. And I would say the same thing as you. I mean, we need to follow all of the reporting requirements there is within the EU, whether it's SDG or all of those things, right? So obviously those, and the more mature everybody gets, the easier we can also do those things, right? And get much better data on how we're actually performing, because I do think there should be requirements towards what is actually the money invested, what is the impact that comes out of that, right?
Yeah. There's so many things that I'd love to discuss on, so we'll continue, and please come talk to us if you'd like to chat about these topics. So this is it for now, so thanks a lot for listening, and come talk to us later.
Well, thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.